Your regrets are late. Chapter 11. May Goddess Ricina's blessing reach you, little Duchess. Young master, please be careful. Charlize was seen off by the servants within the duchy. She got on the carriage to the Aralpire Academy. Martin had been away for a few days to her hometown to visit Viscountess Rael. Laurie also couldn't go with her due to her high fever, so she was left at the mansion. I saw Laurie was out again and was cleaning the window. Her fever only worsens, and I'm worried about her. Even if I tell her to take a break from work, she insists on continuing. Her whole body is hot like a ball of fire, and no matter how much I say it to her, it is useless. Haley sighed in response. Around this time of year, Laurie's body had a fever, as if she had caught a cold, but she didn't suffer from any chronic disease. There was a time when she lost consciousness and collapsed while working because of her fever. Overall, she's showing the symptoms of a cold, but it is difficult to make a diagnosis. Is it life-threatening? Around this time, she usually got sick, but this was the first time she even collapsed. It's not life-threatening. It is a high possibility that it is hereditary or heart disease inherited from her parents, and it would be better for her to receive appropriate treatment as soon as possible. Heart disease. Yes, that's right. Even when Charlize called reputable doctors from the capital to examine her, an accurate diagnosis couldn't be made. Everyone just said the vague symptoms, but they couldn't find any specific name for Laurie's disease. I told you to rest in your room for a while, but why are you out here? I already got a good night's rest, and I'm all right. I'm all better, Your Highness. Laurie. I think it's more frustrating to just lie in bed. Even if Charlize told her to rest strictly, Laurie was still secretly doing her work. According to the doctor's words, it's a hereditary or a heart disease that inherited from her parents. Laurie is an orphan from birth, so she probably doesn't even know her illness is hereditary. Do you have any idea who is named Lauren? I don't know. Did anything happen? I don't know the details, but the last time I took care of Laurie, she called for Lauren. Maybe Lauren knows something about her illness. Charlize seemed to feel stuffy inside the moving carriage, so she opened the window slightly. The quiet clouds were passing by. By the way. Yes, Your Highness. Charlize stretched out her hand towards the sky, stirring the formless air. Do you have any special schedules after this? Not really. Why are you asking, Your Highness? I think I will have to stay at the academy for a while. In addition to the scholarships business, there are other people I need to meet. A small piece of pink petals flew in from somewhere and gently fell into Charlize's hand. What happened to Prince Orensis, whom I asked you to find out last time? Ah, I was going to report it to you. His Highness Orensis Cable Yuan Ron Peskt, the second prince of the Peskt Empire. Of the 4 royal highnesses of the Peskt Empire, didn't you say he was the only that born from the Empress Sioni? That's right, Your Highness. You mean he's the illegitimate son of Akan I. Come and read on our website WuxiaWorld site. Thanks. Not much is known about his birth mother. But they only knew she had died when the prince was young, and she was the Empress's palace's maid. Lillian came to her mind when she heard that he was not the son of Empress Sioni. The two had something in common, being illegitimate children. Come to think of it. Charlize finds a few suspicious things about Lillian's birth date. Although they were born the same year, Charlize was born in April, when the petals were in full bloom. On the other hand, Lillian was born in December, when the white snow piled up. Even though Lillian was born preterm birth, it was somewhat unclear compared to when Lady Luxon disappeared. Looking only at her appearance, Lillian is definitely the Duke's daughter. Her blue eyes resemble the Duke, even she has silver hair that I don't even have. Your Highness. Don't look at me with those eyes. Haley knew well what Charlize felt for Duke Marcetta. She sympathized with Charlize, who had a bitter expression on her face. When I was young, I hated these so much that I wanted to rip them off, but now I don't. She held a handful of her hair in her hand, which was shimmering in the sunlight. The dark blonde hair, the symbol of the Elioters' royal blood, was inherited from her mother. Charlize got more benefits from the hair color she had. She was named Roxana as her second surname and even had the right to inherit the throne. Not only was she treated as a semi-royal, but she was also praised for her perfect lineage. Rather, she was lucky enough to be born with blonde hair. It was very rare for the children of members of the imperial family of Elitoer to be recognized as an imperial family when they got married. However, it was not long after the bloody tragedy occurred. The carriage in which Grand Duke Innovestine and Grand Duchess Penelope were riding was attacked, and both of them died. It is said that the Marchioness Opert collapsed from a heart attack, and she eventually couldn't wake up. Last night, Marquis Ryduel, the grandson of Her Majesty Queen Archie, went to the arms of the goddess. As if in turn, the remaining distant relatives of the imperial family were dead, so the number decreased significantly. The previous emperor enacted a new law so that only those born with the symbol of the imperial family could be treated as semi-royal. Harbert IV didn't receive the emperor's seal. Moreover, he even framed absurd accusations against his half-sister, Crown Princess Elizabeth, who was the successor to the throne. He committed the bloody tragedy, the cruel thing that would be written in the history books. Noble children the same age as Charlize were reluctant to associate with her because their parents feared Harbert IV. Furthermore, she is also hated by her own father, Duke Marcetta. As a child, Charlize thought the reason she was hated for was because she had blonde hair. I didn't mean to marry you. Suddenly, what? The blonde hair that is only given to the imperial bloodline. I'm really sick of it. How far will you bind me in the name of imperial blood? Charles is watching. Let's talk about it next time. Yekaterina. They always talk like that. Even as time passed, their conversation kept decreasing, and they distanced themselves from each other. Charlize was too young to know about the bloody tragedy and had no idea how her parents got married. As usual, she only thought they married for political reasons. Why don't you have any color that resembles me? I'm sorry, father. I don't want to see you, so stay out of my sight for a while. Charlize was mistaken that her relationship with her father went bad because she inherited her mother's hair color. She thought that was the reason her father didn't recognize her as his daughter and didn't give his love to her. The reason why father doesn't love me, it's because I'm mother's daughter. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Quote. If you're going to make me listen to things like this, why did you give birth to me? She mercilessly thrust her mother's cheek with her words and turned around and left. During that brief time, Charlize had many thoughts, and she immediately regretted it. When she returned to visit her mother had already disappeared. Since that day, she never heard her mother call her by her name again. Your regrets are late. Chapter 12. Her mother called Charlize using her title of princess, just like others called her. Charlize thought of her mother as such a cold and terrifying person. She was thrown out because of a slip of the tongue. Since then, Charlize has tried not to show her emotions. She also didn't neglect her manners or expose her weakness. Princess, please keep your posture straight. Even if you fall, it's princess's job to get up immediately and shake it off. Nevertheless, to her mother, she was regarded as a princess. She couldn't be her daughter forever. That's why the story she heard from her mother before her death came as a shock. The day you cried because you shouldn't show your emotions. I knew I was an ugly mother who couldn't do anything for you. I thought that the only thing that would protect you, who had me as your mother, was the status of a princess. Even when I saw you fall when you were running at me, I was so weak that I couldn't even hug you, let alone run up to you like other mothers. Not being able to hug you has always been a regret for me. You feel the burden of being a princess made me sad and angry at myself. As time has passed, you will understand. I'm not angry with you. I'm angry with myself for not being a mother who holds your hand and walks together. Her mother wasn't angry at what she said then. Even though she missed her mother now, she couldn't reach her. Even if she reached out her hand, it contained only empty air. Isn't this the color I inherited from my mother? At least when I see this, it will always remind me of my mother forever. When the Count Cabe family fell, it was Madame who brought me to duchy. It seems that I vaguely remember it too. Your Highness will receive all the graces of the goddess that Madame left behind in the world. Because Madame left behind Laurie, Martin, and Madame Helen for your Highness. About my nanny, did you know there was someone else who took care of me before Madame Helen came? She has been with me since I was in my mother's womb, and I grew up feeding from her breasts. Lona, was that person's name from what I remember, your Highness. Charlize's nanny's original identity was Viscountess Rael, whom Duchess Marcetta had brought when she came out of the imperial palace as a princess. She quit working when she married Viscount Rael and gave birth to her daughter, Martin. She then quit due to her chronic illness. At the request of Duchess Marcetta, she replaced Lona and became Charlize's new nanny. Lona leaked confidential information about Duke for money and stole expensive items. It was such a serious crime that it wouldn't be strange if she was executed immediately. However, Lona, who raised Charlize on behalf of Duke and Duchess Marcetta, was the only one who cared for and looked after Charlize. Charlize couldn't stand the fact that Rona might be on the verge of death. It was clear that if what Lona did came into the ears of Duke Marcetta, you wouldn't even find Lona's remaining bones. Tell your mother that you're quitting because of your illness. And survived by running away from Duchy as far as possible. I will pay your travel expenses and your necessary living expenses. Why did Madam give me so much grace when I did something that could harm? Princess. I know you have a baby. Your husband died from the epidemic. Quote. I'm paying for what you've raised so far. Quote. I hope we would never met again, Lona. Lona, who had been with Charlize since birth, left her job due to her chronic illness when Charlize was only 9 years old. I haven't really seen her since that day. Shall we find the whereabouts of Madame Lona? Don't look for her. Your Highness. Not seeing her throughout her life is the only reward I can give for the price raising me. In order to live, it would be good for them not to see each other again. After those words, silence fell inside the carriage. Charlize fell asleep at some point as if the aftermath of staying up all night for several days to finish her paperwork. Are you sleeping? Quote. Haley, who looked sadly at Charlize, took out a blanket and wrapped it around her. Your Highness. We have arrived at the Academy. Come and read on our website WuxiaWorld site. Thanks. Haley gently grabbed Charlize's shoulder and shook it a couple of times. After waking up from her sleep, Charlize wiped her face with her hands. Upon getting off the carriage, it was none other than Dean Pavel waiting for them. Greetings to the little Duchess of Marcetta. May Goddess Ricina's blessing reach you. May Dean Pavel be protected too. It's an honor to have you come this far, Your Highness. It seems like it's been a long time since I have seen you. Dean Pavel was a professor of political science at Roosevelt Academy for quite some time. Then he became the Dean of Aralpire Academy. Although Charlize had never been taught by him, he could be called as her teacher. It was really a pity that I couldn't teach Your Highness because I got called to here. It's a pity for me too. Let's go to my office now, Your Highness. Charlize followed him inside. A structure similar to the Roosevelt Academy caught her eye, and it was enough to evoke nostalgia. Haley. Yes, Your Highness. You can spend 4 hours separately while I'm talking to the Dean. Thank you, Your Highness. Haley, the daughter of Count Cabe, dropped out while attending the swordsmanship faculty of the Aralpire Academy. She couldn't afford the tuition because Count Cabe wasted his fortune on gambling. Even if Haley didn't say anything, it was clear that she would miss the people she had been with. After graduating and coming-of-age ceremony at the age of 17, Charlize had never been to the Peskt Empire, including the Roosevelt Academy. She wondered about the news of Ibelin, who shared a room with her before graduating. Ibelin was one of the Countess Princesses of the Sish Kingdom. She was a child who said she would succeed to the throne, beating her sisters. After Charlize's graduation, her whereabouts became obscure, and there was no way to know about her. Is there a tea you like or dislike? None. Sit down for a moment, Your Highness. Dean Pavel, who came in with the tea, started talking earnestly about the scholarship project. These are the students who will be supported this time. Please take a look at it slowly, Your Highness. If it's the second daughter of Viscount Mile, I've heard her name before. She was a great talent who promoted her family, which was on the verge of collapse, to the rank of Viscount. Her name is Karna Seal von Mile, and she's also a particular student to whom I pay special attention. I definitely wanted to meet her once. I can't believe we're going to meet like this. She couldn't afford to pay for the academy, so while she was thinking of dropping out, she was delighted that she could continue with the Duke's support. Upon hearing Dean Pavel's words, Charlize smiled without her knowing. She then asked, carefully examining the contract for the scholarship he had brought. I was told that Professor Hale wanted to see me. Professor Rosette Percy Van Hale. She had something to tell him about her mother's death and asked for the details of the bloody tragedy. I was also surprised when Rosette said that he wanted to meet Your Highness. Pardon. He rarely leaves his office. It's okay to go there right away. Dean Pavel answered Charlize's question with an awkward smile. Where is Professor Hale's room? If you go straight and turn right, you will find a place with a lilac pattern engraved on the door. Dean Pavel detailed the route to Professor Hale's room. In addition, they spent time talking about various things after a long time. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Site only. Ah, I have something to ask Dean. What do you want to ask? He was in the magic faculty in the Rosielt Academy. Since he was the same age as your highness, didn't you graduate together?